Hello, class. Today we're going to cover Math 131, Objective 15. All right. For this objective, we are going to solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula. Okay. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, okay? And we want the equation that we do this on, it needs to be set up like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, okay? And of course, a cannot be equal to 0. So that is the quadratic formula. That's the form that we need the quadratic equation to be in, all right? So let's look at our first example. So we have x squared plus 3a minus 10 equals 0. It's in the correct format. So when it's in the correct format, we can easily identify what our a, what our b, and what our C is, okay? So this is why we want it in this format, okay? After we have it in the correct format and we have correctly identified our A, B, and C, we always want to write our formula. This is our blueprint, our map. We always want to write it out. And then it is my recommendation to you to rewrite the formula, but leave gaps so that you can plug in the information that you need to plug in. Okay, this is going to make sure that you don't miss anything and that you plug everything into parentheses correctly. Okay, so A is 1. Okay, so I need to put a 1 here and here. B is 3. I need to put a 3 here and a 3 here. And C is negative 10. So I need to put a negative 10 right here. Okay? So now everything is plugged in correctly. All right? Now we just need to simplify and keep working the problem out. All right? So in the bottom, 2 times 1, we know that's going to be 2. In the top, we can simplify up under the radical sum, okay? And also that negative 3, we can just write it as a negative 3 like that. So we have a 3 squared. That is going to be 9. And we have a negative 4 times 1 times negative 10. That is going to be a positive 40, okay? So this is my recommendation to you all, to simplify in this way, okay? Under the radical, do that, the exponent, do that multiplying, and it's going to help, simplify what's under the radical. So in our next step under the radical, we'll have negative 3 plus or minus. When we add the 9 and the 40, we'll get 49. And it's going to be all over 2, okay? Now we need to simplify what is the square root of 49, okay? That is going to be 7. So we have x equals negative 3 plus or minus 7 over 2. Now it is at this point where we can break this into 2 different problems, okay? we will have the x equals negative 3 plus 7 over 2, and the x equals negative 3 minus 7 over 2, okay? So that plus or minus means that when it's time, we can break it up into the two problems where we have the plus version and the minus version, okay? Now we need to simplify the fraction. Negative 3 plus 7 is going to be 4, and we still have that over 2. We can't get rid of that yet. Negative 3 minus 7 is going to be negative 10, and it's still over 2. Now, for the final step, we got 4 over 2, which is going to be 2, and we have negative 10 over 2, which is going to be negative 5, okay? So we have our two x's right here, 2 and negative 5. All right, for example 2, we have x squared plus 5x minus 39 equals 0, okay? So with it being in this format, we need to figure out what A, B, and C is, okay? So we want to look at the coefficient in front of x squared, and it is 1. We want to look at the coefficient in front of x, which is 5, and our constant term, which is C, is going to be negative 36, okay? After we figure out what A, B, and C are, we're going to write our formula, and then we're going to rewrite the formula and leave a gap so that we can plug in those values, okay? So the first one that we need to plug in is a 5 for B. Then we have our plus and minus. Then under the radical, we need to plug in another 5 because it's a B squared. So that's going to be 5 squared. Then we have minus 4AC. A is 1 and C is negative 36. And then A is 1, so we'll have that 1 there, okay? Now, as before, we need to start simplifying, okay? Under the radical, we have a 5 squared, which is going to be a 25. Then we have a negative 4 times 1 times negative 36. This is going to be 144, okay? So in our next step, we will bring down the negative 5 and the 2. But under our radical now, when we add the 25 plus the 144, we will have 169, okay? Now we need to figure out what the square root of 169 is, and that is going to be what? 13, all right? So we have negative 5 plus or minus 13 plus over 2, okay? Now we can break it into our two problems, the negative 5 plus 13 over 2 and the negative 5 minus 13 over 2, okay? So the negative 5 plus 13 is going to be 8, and it's still over 2. And the negative 5 minus 13 is going to be negative 18, and it's still going to be over 2. Now we need to do our last simplifying step. 8 over 2 is going to be 4, and negative 18 over 2 is going to be negative 9, okay? Okay, let's look at example 3. We have 3x squared minus x equals x squared minus 5x plus 6, okay? Now we want to think about what we need before we can use the quadratic formula, okay? In order to do the quadratic formula, we need it to be set up like this. All right, it is not set up that way. So we need to make it be set up that way, okay? So one thing we can do, everything that is on the right side of the equation, we can move it to the other side by subtracting it from each side. And add it to each side, okay? We need to do whatever, the opposite of that operation. So we will subtract x squared from both sides. We will add 5x to both sides, and we will subtract 6 from both sides, okay? When we do that, we will have 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 equals 0. Now it is in the format that we need, okay? So from here, A is going to be 2, B is going to be 4, and C is going to be -6, all right? We're going to write our formula. Then we're going to rewrite it, but we're going to leave the gaps, okay? So everywhere you see a letter, you're going to just put a little parenthesis gap right there. Now we're going to go back and plug everything in, okay? So B is 4, A is 2, and C is -6, okay? Now we can simplify. Under the radical, we have 4 squared, which is going to be 16. We have -4 times 2 times -6, that is positive 48. In the denominator, we have 2 times 2, which is going to be 4. If we simplify this one more time, the 16 plus the 48 is going to be 64, all right? So we have -4 plus or minus the square root of 64 all over 4. And the square root of 64 is 8. So we have x equals -4 plus or minus 8 over 4. Now at this point, this is when we can break it up into our 2 different versions where we have that plus sign and the minus sign, all right? Now we have 2 problems to figure out. First, -4 plus 8 is going to be 4, and it's still over 4. And -4 minus 8, that's going to be -12, and that part is still over 4 for right now. Now we have to do the division, all right? 4 over 4 is going to be 1, and -12 over 4 is going to be -3, okay? So we got our 2 x's that we needed. We got the 1 and the -3. So with this problem, we need to make sure that we remember that before we start the problem, before we can even plug into the formula, we have to have it in the right format so that we can correctly identify our A, B, and C, okay? In this particular case, we moved everything from the right side over to the left side so that we could put it in that correct format. Okay, Now for example 4, which is going to be our last example, we have 2x squared plus x equals x minus 4 times x minus 2, okay? So what we're going to have to do on this side of the equation, we're going to have to simplify this. We're going to have to FOIL it out, okay? So this side is going to stay the same, all right? On this side, we're going to have to do the x times the x to get x squared, x times -2 to get -2x, -4 times x to get -4x, and -4 times -2 to get +8. When we combine the like terms in the middle, we will have 2x squared plus x equals x squared minus 6x plus 8, okay? From here, we need to do what we previously did. We need to move all of this to the other side, okay? So that we can get our equation in the right form, okay? So we'll have x squared plus 7x minus 8 equals 0, okay? A is going to be 1, B is going to be 7, and C is going to be -8, okay? We're going to write our formula next, which is going to be our roadmap, and then we're going to plug everything in. We're going to plug the 7 in for B, a 1 in for A, and a -8 in for C, okay? When we simplify under that radical, we're going to have 49 for the 7 squared, and for the -4 times 1 times -8, we're going to get +32. When we simplify that further, under that radical, we're going to have 81, okay? So what we are going to be looking at, we're going to have -7 plus or minus 9 over 2. And when we break that into our two problems, we'll have -7 plus 9 over 2 and -7 minus 9 over 2. The -7 plus 9 is going to be 2 over 2. And the -7 minus 9 is going to give us -16 over 2. All right. So 2 over 2 is going to be 1. And -16 over 2 is going to be -8. Okay. So with these examples, you should be able to handle any type of problem that you come up against where you have to use the quadratic formula. You just want to make sure that you simplify using all of the things that we have previously learned through our objectives. You want to multiply through, simplify, move those items over to the correct side so that it's in that correct format that we need. And when it's in that correct format, you are ready to go as far as plugging it into the formula. All right. So that completes Math 131, Objective 15.